Hello, welcome to the Lately in PHP Hangout. I'm going to start calling this Hangout from now on. There will no longer be podcasts, just Hangouts. And this is episode 43, and as before, I have here with me Cesar Rodas. Hello, Cesar. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing just great. I couldn't be better.
Oh, really? What have you been doing of good to be so happy?
Well, it happens that what I mentioned in the last Hangout that was in December, technically it was last a year, I am working for a New Zealand company.
Oh, you told me.
So,
but you were making it secret. What you said it was known or famous or whatever. What is that company? Can you reveal now, or is it still a secret?
No, I can reveal it now. It's a mega company. So it's a mega company, and the name is mega.co.nz. It's the successor website from Mega Upload. So I am there as a
kidding me,
as
right?
a developer. Yeah. No way.
Oh,
Yeah.
No. Are you sure? So no. Are you? Is that? No, you are making fun of me, right?
No way.
It's serious.
Yeah, and by the first time in my entire life, I can tell to any mere mortal where I'm working, and chances are they know what I'm talking about. Because before it was just some shopping at a given city that chances were that they will never even hear of it. So it's the first time that I'm working in so famous company, and I'm just very happy. So
now I know what you mean. So that's why you have put it here on the subtitle Mega Developer.
Yeah.
Oh, that explains it. So are you really working for the famous Kim.com?
Yeah, I didn't meet him yet, but I'm working with so many great people. Like the thing that we are building, it just blew me away. Like basically all what was before running from the server side, it is running now in the browser. So it's just amazing.
So are you working on something in PHP, or what are you doing exactly? Can you tell? I don't know if you can tell.
Sure. At the moment, I am a JavaScript developer, so I'm working improving some of the parts on the web applications. I guess at some point in the future, I might help in the backend doing some PHP, because they do use PHP with MySQL, so, and it does scale. I don't know. At the moment, I am doing JavaScript, but the kind of JavaScript that nobody else does. So it's so exciting that I'm. Yeah. I can say how happy I'm actually am.
Oh, really? Well, at least you are working for a company that made fame. I'm not sure if everybody would think it's famous for the right reasons, but well, at least I'm sure your work probably will make an impact to many people that probably were not even aware of what exactly they do. But well, I don't know. I think it's congratulations should be due, right? I know.
Thank you.
Well, okay. Anyway, we are here to talk about PHP. That it was interesting to know about your new job. Well, if you are working with JavaScript, I hope you gain interesting experience there, and also share some interesting JavaScript components, at least in JS classes. You said for now you're not working with PHP. But okay, let's move on with the podcast. Now we are going to talk, as usual, about the latest developments in the PHP versions. And then we are going to start exactly about the latest releases in December of PHP. There was the 5.5.7, which is basically, as before, bug fixes mainly, but I think they're like in also in the update for 5.4 and now also for 5.3. There was a security bug fix related with OpenSSL. Here it says fix memory corruption OpenSSL X509 parts, but it doesn't say exactly what this fix, but it seems to be an important security fix because there was actually a release of 5.3.28, which means that it is an important security fix, I suppose, right? Cesar, did you look into these fixes, or I am not right in calling it this important?
It might not be important for many people, but I saw the fixes on the PHP 5.5.7 on the get all headers. So that was implemented because this function is it's I don't know how to call it, but it is implemented differently for each SAPI, for each server interface. So that function was missing for the PHP built-in web server, which, by the way, I was skeptical about how useful that would be. I'm using it now for all my development, and it's so handy. Like, I don't have to go and deal with any Apache configuration. It's so helpful that I would recommend to any developer that if you do have many virtual hosts, you might want to take a look to what the PHP guys, what the PHP folks, what they have done in the PHP 5.5. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Oh well, that's interesting. But we are talking about security, and regarding that, now we're going to move on. Also talking about a proposal for a feature eventually to make to PHP 5.6, right? Which is about peer verification when using TLS layer, security layer for everything that requires a secure connection using TLS 1.0.
Yeah.
And well, it seems that at least the initial proposal was to consider 2 or 3 options, which would be to continue with peer verification disable as we have in current versions, or implement a patch that would force the verification on the connections. I don't know if it would still be an option, but I take it that every time you connect to a secure server to verify if the peer is real, if the server, I mean, is really who it says it is, and we're using certification authorities, I mean, the certificates would be bundled with PHP, and the other alternative would be to implement the proposed patch, but not bundle it. Just use it probably what you have in your Linux distribution. And there was a vote. Everybody seemed to vote yes, but in the end, it seems that there was a discussion with Erasmus, and it was determined that the original purification vote should be discarded. So it seems it didn't count. Well, I don't know if this is a good idea. I'm not sure what was exactly the reasoning. Cesar, did you follow these discussions? What did you think about the outcome?
I didn't follow much. However, I stumbled with this problem not long time ago. I was building a private RSS parser, and I had some issues like trusting HTTPS. So I stumbled, and I found these problems that by default it doesn't care about the certs, and I was using curl, so it was complaining. So I end up just saying that just don't verify that, because I didn't know how to configure that. Apparently that will continue being, but they will explain how to enable that. Which, to be honest, I don't know what could be the downside of bundling it and just making it working by default. I could say that it will be like an easy target. Say I want to just do malicious search, I could just add it, and if nobody verifies that, that would be distributed into a few million servers, and that would be chaos. But I don't see any downsides. Like if that ever happens, that means that the release cycle is broken, which is not in PHP. So I don't know, to be honest, about that. But I would like to, as an mere mortal developer, I would just like to just tell to PHP, fetch me this HTTPS, and just forget about all those details. Like, it should just work, but it doesn't right now.
Right. Well, I thought this is an important matter regarding developing secure applications that need to request resources from secure servers. Because it could be cause some security problems, man-in-the-middle attacks, which are the usual types of attacks that could happen when you do not verify the peer, the certificate of the server. And well, I don't know, maybe there was a good reason, at least for not do it right away, but we'll see. So it seems that the vote didn't count. Okay, but now moving on to another feature that was proposed. This time was one about adding a new function to PHP that would allow to get the constants of a certain class that may have defined some constants. This is a simple feature request. Actually, I don't know if they already submitted it as a proposal. This is just first discussion from Stefan Neufeld. And well, I don't know. This probably can be useful. I'm not sure about any use cases. Cesar, do you have any idea of any use cases that a function like this could be useful?
Sure. That would be really useful in places where you want to get information about a class constant. So from the top of my head, I could use it in several projects, specifically because what I try to do with my spare time is just to write tools that could read some input that most of the time are other objects or classes and do something with it. So if you ever use it, any functions like get all functions or get method vars and things like that, so it will behave in the same way. And the reason why he asked it, I don't really know, but it does make sense.
Yeah.
And it got some expected responses from people, like you could do it using reflections, and creating objects are just cheap. You should do that. And the reason being is that from time to time, like from 5 years ago, people, they don't like functions in PHP. They prefer objects and methods. It's some sort of placebo that makes them believe that that is the proper way. So I don't see any downsides. Like, if that function is ever available, I would use it without hesitation.
Yes. Right. Well, but the question is, when would you use it? Do you have any case do you like to use it? I think maybe, for instance, if you have a form that has a select field, so you can pick some values for certain type of a variable that takes a certain constants for a class. Maybe they want to pick it there automatically. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm just thinking from the top of my head an easy example where you might want to have it useful, but
Yeah, it's
probably
not obvious.
probably you are rendering a form, and you want to render a select from a class. So you can just use that, like the possible values are these values, and here is the machine name, and here is the value that the people should see it, because at the end, constants are just key values that cannot change at runtime. So that is an example. Say you have a class that has, I don't know, a class which is person, or that might not be a good example, but probably types of things, and that has like 20 constants. So you could just do like, give me all the constants that I want to render it into a form, so people can actually choose one of those. And so suppose that then you need to add a new constant. You go just to one place and you add it, or you remove it.
Could be
That might be handy. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Well, maybe this can be useful for that case. Well, anyway, moving on with the podcast, another proposal here is something more towards PHP 6, because this is probably will require a greater effort and will not be done immediately for 5.6, which is the idea to make the function names in PHP more consistent. I think this is related with how words are separated in function names. In PHP, some functions have multiple words and they are separated by underscore. In other cases, they are not, multiple words are tied to each other and they do not. They are not very consistent. So I think the idea here is more to address that problem. I don't know if this is really necessary, but well, somebody proposed it and there was a discussion about it. What do you think, Cesar? Do you think this is important or maybe not really that much?
It could be important if this issue was addressed like 15 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
I think that now it is just too late. There are over a few thousand functions that are native that comes bundled in PHP, and deprecate one of them, it takes a very long time as it should. Because imagine if you just upgrade your PHP and suddenly nothing works because functions are just missing. So this could be useful for from now on, but now the trends are that the extensions and things that are adding into the core, they trend to be rather objects and classes and methods, no longer functions. Like the last function I remember that was added was the password functions, and those functions, they are really useful and you should use it by the way, or everyone. But I don't remember the new function had been added to the core, so I don't see that this is useful now. That would be useful like 15 years ago.
Well, I think the idea is more to bring some consistency, so those usual PHP complainers like fans of other languages, they stop having that excuse, oh, PHP is not consistent because some functions have underscores and others don't, and the idea is not to rename the functions just like that. They would still provide aliases, so the original names would still be valid. So it would be an alias to the new name with underscore separating the words. So in that sense, I think it can be done. It probably will be a tedious task, but if they think it's important, well, whoever thinks it's important should actually implement that those aliases.
Sure.
But for me, it doesn't really make a difference. And but I understand that people that are concerned with this probably are concerned with complaints against PHP. So it's a sort of eliminating a complaint, an excuse for not using PHP that some people provide.
The thing that bothers many people is that PHP is not and was not an academic project or product or programming language, and it became mainstream and is actually being used for many people. So haters are gonna hate. So I believe this is a good thing, that as long as they don't break my old code, I will embrace it if it ever happens to happen.
Right, I think they will, whatever they do, they will not do it in a way that breaks backwards compatibility, so it will not cause problems in your current code. It will not break in the future PHP versions because these renamed aliases. Well, anyway, now moving on with the podcast, I found out this article here about the HipHop project for those that are still not familiar with it, HipHop nowadays is a virtual machine for um, providing dynamic compilation of PHP into native code. It's a project that is sponsored by Facebook. I mean, they not only sponsor development, but they also use it in their servers because they have a great part of their code. I assume it's in PHP. So they developed this HipHop virtual machine, HVM. And this article here is talking about that now they have had fast CGI support to HVM. So if you are in an environment that uses HVM, from now on you can use, an environment that uses fast CGI, from now on you can use HVM to compile, to run your PHP code. And well, I'm not sure if this is how good this news is. Personally, I'm not using HHVM yet in any of my projects. I think it is a very interesting project, but I don't know yet about these details, if they are really important. Cesar, have you been using HHVM, or at least you have tried it? Do you think? What do you think about this announcement?
I remember that we compiled in one of my virtual machines when it was brand new. That was probably 2 years ago. I don't remember. That was the last time I actually used it. The thing is that it is designed to be easily compile if you use Ubuntu, which I don't use. I happen to be using OpenSUSE now, so I tried. I couldn't, so I just stopped using it. But I follow all the developments and what they are doing. So I met last year to one of their developers in Buenos Aires, and they are doing just magnificent things. They are optimizing at such low level that they are optimizing at the assembly level, and right now it is just running faster than ever. So they are doing a really good job. So I don't have why I never use it if it is such a great thing. Well, the main thing why I'm not using it because some of the extensions that I need are missing there. So because it is a completely new thing written from the scratch. So I cannot use pickle extensions. I don't use many of them, but I particularly use the client from Mongo. I just happen to use it that a lot, and with these HHVM you could use MySQL, so that's why I'm not using it at the moment. But who knows, in near future if I would just switch to it. In terms of the fast CGI, I don't know if that is particularly useful. Why is that? Because HHVM, they implemented already a multi-threaded web server. So if you want to have just one entry point to your cluster of servers, you can easily just implement a reverse proxy. And having fast CGI is not an advantage in terms of performance, probably, but it is always good that they are trying to make it mainstream. So that's something that I like it. So I think it is something good.
Yeah, well, regarding that problem of not having all the extensions in HHVM. I remember that I think it was Sarah Goldman that mentioned some
Yeah.
time ago that they would be working on providing all the extensions, or at least as many extensions as possible, so there would not be excuses for not using HHVM, at least in the future. But obviously that will take time, and probably
Yeah,
they have limited resources to do it.
yeah, if I would do it myself, which I won't because I don't do C++, I would instead just providing macros. So you can take like the most basics extensions that do not do anything extraordinary, like for instance like xdebug, which is doing too many internal things, so that wouldn't work. But say you want to use one extension to just handle hashes or anything. So with using those macros, so you can take that C code and just add some middle layer that could be like a proxy between those two worlds, and the HHVM tries to emulate as much as possible how the Ascent engine works for the extensions. That's how I would do it, because you work hard, but you work once, or at least that is in theory.
Right, and also tied to this topic of HHVM, there is another thread discussed in the PHP internals. A developer with the name Zifeng Hu asked about if it would be possible to introduce HHVM into the PHP kernel tree. I think he means like replacing Zend engine with HHVM. Well, we have actually talked about that in the past. If HHVM does everything that Zend engine does, I think it would be a great improvement for PHP, because nowadays Zend engine does not do any dynamic compilation of PHP opcodes into native machine code, and I think it would could gain a lot of performance. And so this guy was asking if it would possible. Well, there was a discussion about this. There are some complaints about things that are missing in HHVM, and well, at least in the near future, that probably will not happen. But maybe in a few years, I don't know. What do you think, Cesar?
If that ever happens to be true, like that is doable, that would take a very long time. Like I remember that when PHP 5, that when it was released and when it was planned for development and things like that, it took so long time that before that I wasn't even developing. So if that ever happens to be true, that would take, I would guess, like 5 years or so, which isn't that bad. Like having two PHP implementation is not something bad at all. Like there are many programming languages that have one C implementations and many others. They are in Java, they are JPython, they are IronPython, they're the CPython, and nobody wants to just merge those 4 projects into one. However, I don't know if that could be even feasible, because for starters, just two issues that I've been reading. Is the first is that the whole PHP ecosystem with the virtual machine, which is Zen engine, they are written in C, and the HHVM, it is written in C++. But that is not the end all of the world. Like C++ compilers, they can compile C, so it's not the end of the world. But the other thing
I think
is that
replacing, I think replacing one by the other would mean like probably not reusing any code from Zen engine at all.
Yeah, and the other thing is that HHVM seems to be GCC dependent, so you cannot compile with any other C++ compiler. There are many, not many, but there is the one from Microsoft, and there is, I believe, I don't want to be mistaken, but there is the LLVM, so that seems to be mainstream now. Those two reasons, they are gonna prevent that from happening for some time, unfortunately. Right. But still, I don't believe that it is harmful for the community that we have two implementations. And the third thing that I didn't thought through is that HHVM is Facebook dependent, either for fundings and for getting developers. What happens if Facebook just crashes from now to 3 or 4 years, which could happen? Like, nobody knows what's going to happen in 2 or 3 years.
But
so
that probably
that's
would be
another
hard.
thing.
Yeah, and the code being open source, I think the community would take it. Well, the same could have been said about Zen when Zen took over most of the core development of PHP, and then nothing happened. And but I remember regarding. Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was about to say that the thing about being open source is not all. Like, the most important thing is that people outside from Facebook, which are not getting salaries, that they contribute, because they are those who actually knows how the thing works. So it's not only that, hey, I am a C++ developer, I can help. No, it's a very complex machine. It's very complex. So how it works and things like that. So there should be a community that could embrace it in case that Facebook ever crashes, which is hardly unlikely, but could happen.
Yeah.
But those are speculations. The main reasons are technical reasons. They were designed like they are like two different cars with two different engines, but they look alike. So, but the whole internals are totally different.
Right, it would be a big change. So I think my wild guess would be that probably would not happen in less than 3 years, I think, because there are many things to change, many extensions to adapt, and even if when it would be considered to be ready to take a few years for everybody to jump on a new version, just like PHP 5. PHP 5 got a new engine. Although it was still called Zen engine, it was not exactly compatible with the past versions. And anyway, the other thing I was going to mention is that I remember that Zen also had to make some concessions regarding the licensing of the code, because some people were concerned about depending on Zen. What if Zen is sold to another company that decides to cancel the rights they gave before? What if the Zen was bought by Microsoft or Oracle? Yeah, and the same concern applies to Facebook. So I remember that they changed the Zen engine license to something like BSD, or what was exactly BSD, to make those people that were concerned happier. And well, in the end, nothing like that happens, and still continues to be an independent company. Well, they are funded, but they are independent. Were not bought by somebody else, at least that I know. And so the conclusion to this is that I think it will eventually happen. That's just my opinion, but it probably will take a long time. There are many technical hurdles to deal with. And okay, now moving on to another topic. This time it is related with actually a feature that was implemented in the last month, which is the support that was added to Composer in PHP classes and JS classes. So since last month, both sites can act as Composer repositories. Composer is a PHP tool that can install packages and any other packages that they depend on. And but this time I actually wrote published a new package that addresses an important problem that was sort of left out for the lack of time. But I'm going to share here the actual article that talks about it, which is basically being able to install not only PHP packages, but also what is called asset files like JavaScript and CSS and images, but under the web document root, because by default Composer installs all package files under a directory named vendor inside your project directory. And usually for web projects, usually the web document root is a separate document that obviously is not inside the vendor directory. And that poses the challenge if you want to install packages that contain asset files, so PHP and JavaScript and JavaScript, CSS, and images, you would have to find a different solution for that problem. So the solution that I found out, I have to do some research. That's why it took me some time, because despite Composer is a nice project, there is the part that allow this feature, which is the support to plugins, is not yet totally documented as I hoped it would be. So it took me some time to develop a plugin that implemented this feature. And but finally I figured out what to do, and basically what it does is to actually copy any files that you define to a directory that you choose. So I wrote this article. I published this package. Is actually published just a few days ago, and that's why this Hangout was delayed a bit, because I wanted to publish this package first and write an article to actually talk about it here in this Hangout. So basically, here you see your typical composer.json file where you define all the properties of your project. You define here some packages that you need in our projects, and as well some definitions of some repositories. So what this plugin allows is that you define, for instance, an assets package, that is coming from, for instance, in this case, is the JS classes repository. Below you define that you have a repository with, actually you have several repositories defined here, including this one, JS classes. So this JS classes / fast content loader is a package from that side. And below there is a section named extra, on which you can define where your access files go. And basically, you can define actions to apply to the packages, the assets packages that you want to have their files installed. In this case here, I've defined some default actions for all the packages. Okay, I have listed here the names of the packages that contain access files. Could be any package that you define here in the require section, but those that contain asset files, we have to define them here. So what it does is basically to define a target for, in this case, JavaScript files, and I am saying here that all .js files be copied to the web/js directory. And it is actually interesting that after I published this package in this article, many people seem to be happy that a package that does something like this was published, because it seems there are already some plugins that do something similar, but I don't know, probably they do not make it as simple as I meant it to be here. So I think it was well received. Cesar, did you look into this package? I don't know if you had the opportunity to look into it and actually tell what you found out about it, or what was your opinion?
I haven't used it yet, but however, it looks very nice. And how you design it, it looks so simple to actually use. So first, congratulations. Second, that you solve a problem that many people say that, but you could use Bauer or Bauer, however it is pronounced, and you can use Grunt. Don't take me wrong, I do use Grunt because I find it very useful, but I use it because I want it. But
no, it's great.
Imagine that. But imagine if you are a PHP developer and you don't know about Node.js and you don't want them. So you want to add jQuery to one of your pet projects. So okay, you could do so, but you need to install Node, npm Bower, and then after downloading like 30 megabytes, now you can install your jQuery. So it defeats all purpose unless you already have them installed and you do care about all those little details.
Exactly.
Like I do use Grunt because when I push something to production, I do some treatment, like I concatenate like lots of tiny JavaScript files, because I like to have tiny files that they do one thing and they do just that. I don't like to have one gigantic file with a JavaScript. So at production, I just concatenate them, I minimize it, I produce compressed versions and things like that. So it's very useful. But if you don't care, why it's like killing a mosquito with a bazooka. It will get you the job done. But if you don't need all that firing power, that defeats all purpose.
Right.
So I think that I think that your solution that's gonna be popular and that's gonna make mainstream, like using Composer, which is something
Yeah.
that you already have for your web development, so you can also make it use your assets. And that is a problem that many people had. Like I had a little experience with Laravel framework, um, which is a really nice framework, which is new, which uses lots of Symfony packages, and they have implemented like a console command, so it will walk through all your vendors and publish all their needed assets. But it's a separate project. It's a separate thing which
Yeah.
is not integrated with Composer. So I think that what you've done it's just great. I
Right.
will start using it for my current projects.
Right. Several things. Actually, what you said is also read. I actually saw some comments on Twitter. People say that they were sort of surprised. They would not expect that Composer could be used for that. Well, the reason, my point of view is, why not? If you can install files with Composer, why would you have, like you mentioned, some people also, oh, I use Bower for installing packages. Well, but that makes sense when you are installing packages from Node package managed repositories, NPM repositories. And if you are working all, developing all in PHP, why you would be required to use Bower? I have nothing against Bower. I think it's a great a great tool. It's somewhat similar to what other asset managers do, and along with Grant, it could be also a very good combination of packages that do several things useful. And but if you are just a PHP developer and you don't want to get bothered to install, sometimes it is not even possible because you do not control that much your environment on the server. And if you can do it all in PHP, so that is great. And my idea was that well, I have tried to use Node.js, but I don't use it on a daily basis, and I think it was really necessary that somebody did it. Actually, it was me. There were other people that developed also some asset managers, but they'd work differently because they would require that the package that you want to install with the JavaScript, CSS, whatever, has some format, and sometimes you do not control it. For instance, if somebody wants to install a package from Composer repository in JS classes site, you would not have control of the file structure that is in the package. You could not add some Composer JSON to that package to define any metadata. And the way that I define it is that you don't need to touch any asset packages that you want to install. If you want to install jQuery from whatever repository is there, you could. And the idea is to not be dependent on anything else other than PHP. And but well, my main motivation was exactly to make it easier for people that want to use packages from JS classes, because Composer is not yet an usual solution available on repositories of JavaScript packages. That is something that I introduced in JS class site, and that was the main idea. And another aspect that I wanted to comment, and let me get back to the actual article here, is that I added other features, not just being able to install copy files from the vendor directory to the any web access directory. I also made it possible that somebody else can create plugins for this actual package, this asset manager, to implement new types of actions. Currently, it only implements a simple action, which is to copy files with a certain file name pattern, like JS files, ending in .js, copied to a certain directory. That is the core function. But you could want to do other things like IO. You could want to minify, for instance, the JavaScript files while you are doing it, or even, as you mentioned, concatenate lots of JavaScript files. So in the end, it's just one request, and makes your web environment more efficient. And then, so this way it is, you can use this package and create a simple composer plugin that extends the actual installer class that is in this plugin that I developed, and you can implement new actions to implement minification or concatenation or compression, for instance, of images. You could create, for instance, sprite images from a set of smaller images, and you make it better for your environment and address more needs than it currently is useful. I plan to add more actions to this plugin, but if you want to use this plugin as it is now and they want to extend its capabilities, you do not rely on asking me to implement these features. So you do not rely on me accepting pull requests to implement those other actions. And that is one thing that I mentioned in this article. It explains here how to install new types of actions. It just gives some sample code. You just need to override one function to implement new actions. And other than that, I also wanted to address different needs. And I bundled another feature in this plugin, which would allow to automatically log in repositories, private repositories, or otherwise repositories that require a username and a password to log in. And this particular feature was inspired on a pull request that was submitted by Stefan Ockdorfer. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right. He's a German that has been contributing to Composer, and he actually submitted a pull request to Composer to support this feature, which is to make it automatically log in repositories that require username and password. So if you need to access a repository that requires authentication, it won't. It just reads the username and password from a file instead of asking the user every time to enter the username and password. And so this feature also addresses that need, except that it does not require to patch Composer, which is what the pull request by Stefan Ockdorfer was submitting. And I don't know, for some reason he submitted this patch many months ago, and I don't know, for some reason the Composer developers did not yet accept the pull request. But well, at least I need to move on, and I figured out to implement it as a plugin. and it addresses this need, and all is fine. And I also noticed that other people were happy also with this feature, because in their companies they have their own private repositories with the username and password. They do not because they have their controlled set of packages, and they do not want to rely on, for instance, public repositories like packages or PHP classes or JS classes. They would rather have it in a controlled environment. So they use a composer server software called Satis, and I noticed that several people were happy to use this plugin and without relying to patch on Composer, because until that patch was accepted, it would require that you apply the patch over and over again on every new release of Composer, and that was not really a good solution. So, well, great that it also addressed their need. I was more concerned about addressing the need of users that want to pull packages from PHP classes and JS classes that require authentication. Not all packages require authentication, and I would like to also mention that this particular plugin, despite it is available in PHP classes, it does not require authentication. It would not make sense to require authentication, precisely when it is meant to also provide a feature that makes it easy to authenticate. So if it requires authentication before installing the plugin, users still need to enter the username and password. So I made it not available for download either from Composer or directly in the web page as a zip archive without authentication. So you don't need to even have an account in PHP classes to use it. I think this makes it even more convenient. And well, anyway, I think this it was a great development. It was a feature that was in the plan that I announced when PHP classes reached 14 years ago, like in June, if I'm not mistaken. And finally, I completed it. I will still continue to develop this plugin further to make it support other types of installation types, like I mentioned, like minifying and compressing images and eventually creating sprites. I probably will not try to go further and do everything that, for instance, Grunt does in JavaScript, but those basic actions that I actually need in my own projects, I think it will. I will implement them. I don't know, Cesar, if you have any other ideas regarding actions for installation assets that you probably want to comment.
As long as you could let people just, like, I think Grunt is popular not because it let you configure things, but instead it let you write code for doing things. So if you make it easy to extend, as you said you did, so that should be all. You should provide basics. Examples, say this is how you concatenate different JavaScript files that follow this given pattern using Glob. So you could just use Glob, which is built in PHP, and this is how you just create one file out of it. If you want to minify that, okay, this is how I would do it. But if you let people extend it just defining functions or methods, that should be enough, because if you go crazy and if you implement like every single feature that people ask you, you would just stop working at PHP classes and just maintaining that package, and that's not going to happen. So exactly. If you but I believe that this is really good. You are giving people alternative, say you don't care about so many details, so you can use it. It's simple. It works with Composer. If you know what you are doing, or if you are a Commando developer and you, okay, go use Grunt or whatever you want to actually use it. But giving choices to people is something always good, and I think this choice is gonna be popular. I really like it. Not having to think, say, I want to deploy one project. Why do I need add my server? Okay, I need Node.js just to build packages, and it doesn't make sense if all that I'm doing is just PHP. So now the PHP folk have alternative. There are several projects that manage assets. The most popular is Ascetic, which is extensible. So if you make it like functions, people, I'm sure that they will just jump in and they will add extension for Ascetic. So that's the beauty of open source. So people can just
So one other thing that I wanted to mention is basically I just followed the extensibility spirit that Composer already provides. Actually, I would like to congratulate Composer authors that made it extensible with plugins that can be developed by third parties, and so you don't rely on others to actually extend it. So I just followed that spirit, and I hope that will help other people to solve their own problems. Probably they have weird situations, weird types of asset installations that they want to perform in their projects, and this way they can address their needs. And well, anyway, as I was mentioning, this was just one step, one phase, one feature that I wanted to implement in PHP class and JS classes. Basically, I ended up with this cycle. There are great new developments ahead to implement in PHP class and JS classes, and I'm happy that this is going quite well, and I cannot comment just yet. I'm really dying to talk about something great that I'll be implementing the next days, to announce it soon, like next weeks. But I hope to be back on that later. Just to finalize regarding Composer, just besides the Composer authors and also Stefan or Orkdorfer that helped, gave lots of insight regarding how to develop these plugins. Also want to mention about Phil Sturgeon, that he has been very enthusiastic about Composer since the beginning, and he actually gave some ideas to make this possible also in PHP classes and JS classes as well, of course. Namely, talk a lot about this many months ago, but finally it was implemented. In particular, this feature of having a way to automatically log in using a token. This particular token is not the username password in the site for security reasons, because it's not good to have your passwords around in some servers configured elsewhere. But the idea was implemented somehow like he suggested. So thanks to Phil for his suggestions. And regarding this feature, we are practically talked about all that mattered, and so we are now going to move on with another feature, another section of this Hangout, on which you comment about the Innovation Award winners of well, they were nominated like in October. Then there was the vote in November, and in December the results come out. And first we talk about the winners of JS classes of October. Unfortunately, there were not many nominees. Actually, there was only one nominee in October, which was this object by Marpolo from Romania that can be used to convert XML documents into JSON. So this is basically a component that takes an XML document and loads it so it can traverse its DOM structure and generate JSON from the XML structure. This is interesting. There's not really much more to comment about this object. Just hope that in the future there will be much more innovative components to talk about JavaScript. Hopefully in the future we'll also have as many as there are in the PHP classes side. So moving on now, this time with the nominees of the Innovation Award, the PHP also of October. Cesar, which ones? There were like 6 nominees. Which ones would you like to comment?
I picked 2. Okay, let me see if I can share my screen. If I cannot, I would just.
You can make it. I think you muted yourself.
I'm sorry, I'm just back in. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
I'm back. I'm sorry, I did something wrong here. I will pick the first class. It's the PHP ISO file.
I think it stopped sharing your screen.
Okay, let me see if I can.
It's
break it back.
When you minimize the browser window, it stops the screen sharing.
Yeah, can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, I chose this particular class because when I was younger, I wanted to do this. I never actually did it, probably because the format was so complex. I remember that I printed the whole spec so I could read it when I was at the bus going to my college every day, but I never did it. So, and I know that this is not easy, and it is very useful. Basically, an ISO file, or I don't know how to pronounce it. Probably I should pronounce ISO file. It's the image of the disk and the DVD. So it looks like the DVD and the CDs looks in terms of bytes. So you can actually perform read operations like listing files or just getting their content. I looked how further they implemented. It seems that they implemented like navigating through directories and getting files content, which is enough. So this is a very useful class. So I would definitely use it in a near future. And it was written by Schroeter Christian. I don't know how to pronounce. I don't speak French at all. And he's from France. So the second class is this one, also because I have a fetish with parsing things and doing something with that content. So I really like that. So this class, it parses Microsoft Word documents, but from the newer versions. And from the X, I would assume that they stopped using their proprietary format that was binary back then, and they use XML. So it's really useful. And if from the server side you ever need to get info about any docx file, you should definitely use it. It was written by, I will pronounce the family name, which is Ulum, the name I won't be able to pronounce it. And he's from Indonesia.
Miftaku, I think. Well,
yeah.
At least we try. You cannot do miracles using the proper accent to spell these names, but well, I think people understand.
Yeah.
Well, on my part, I also would like to comment about a couple of classes. And the first one, let me pick here, melody validation. In this case, was developed by Marcelo Santos from Brazil, and he defined basically a package that can validate values, which is something that is very common, except that it can load the definition of the validations from PHP files or files in the YAML format, and this is the innovative part of this thing, because you can separate. For instance, you have an application that does many things. The part of validation, you can separate it into a definition file, so you don't have to look into your code where to add or remove new types of validation for whatever you are doing validation, forms or some other purpose. So kudos to Marcelo for this idea. I hope he can continue to send great packages. It is just the first package that he sent, and it was nominated right away. And the other nominee that I also like to comment as an interesting name, Saxophone, which is basically a PHP stream handler to search XML with XPath. The stream handlers, for those that are not familiar, are special classes that can be used to implement functionality to read from streams. Could be files, could be some other data source. Read or write. In this case, it's just for reading XML documents. And so you can use, for instance, the fopen function, and in the place of the file name, you start with the name sax : and then some values in front which define an expression that performs a search. That performs a search that will be done as this virtual stream, this virtual file is open. And this is interesting because it provides a new approach for reading data from XML documents. There are several other stream handlers, but there was none that was used for this purpose. So kudos to Juraj Pučki from the Czech Republic. Because this is, I personally like a lot stream handlers. There is a whole category in the PHP cost site for stream handlers, and it was very interesting, very innovative, and again, I hope Jira also continues to send more packages like this in the future, so we can enjoy them and also comment them here in the lately in PHP Hangout. So basically, with this, we have reached the end of this Hangout. I would like to thank you, Cesar, once again for coming. This time, Hernani almost made to the Hangout, but he had some professional commitments. He could not stay for the whole time, so he missed again. But we hope to have him in the future. I don't know if you have any final remarks, Cesar.
From my end, I don't know. Once again, thanks for the invitation, and I guess that I will become a regular co-host because Hernani he
always
make it.
Miss it. Yeah. He's been missing a few shows in a row. Well, maybe you can make it next time. So with this, we have ended this podcast. So on my behalf, that is all for now. Bye.
Okay. Bye bye.